TV. It's April the 19th, 2017. Good morning. Welcome to this edition of Morning at NTV's Big Story. My name is Simon Kasiati. And of course, we are all running ahead of our times like headless chickens, some of us, trying to beat the deadline for SIM verification, SIM registration, so as not to be switched off at the bang of midnight tomorrow, 20th of April, 2017. That's when the ultimatum set by government through the Uganda Communications Commission and the Uganda Police does expire. Never mind that, of course, negotiations and discussions and court gymnastics are still going on in the corridors of power and wherever else that plays out to have this extension, this registration extended. And you can understand why the word extension is coming out very fast from me. It's true to the Ugandan nature of doing things. We always wait for last minute, and even then find every reason and excuse to do an extension. And I can bet there will be an extension, and there will be an extension of the extension, and there will be an extension of the extension of the extension, and still you'll still have people still whining and whining and honking and asking why they have to be compelled to register their SIMs and never ask themselves why they have to use SIMs if you don't want them to be registered. And there will be the same folks that will come up to scream, cry and hew when something goes amiss and it cannot be solved because somewhere the chain was broken from an unregistered SIM. So we are a country of incredible contradictions. But this morning, I have the pleasure to host with me one of the players in this whole mix of stuff. I have with me an executive from one of the telecom companies who will be telling us, one, it's a good thing to have all SIMs registered. Two, how is the practicability of the exercise we are going through now? Shall we have all the SIMs on their network verified by close of the deadline? And if that may not be the case, how possible is it that their customers will be switched off? How much revenue do they expect to lose from customers who will not be on the network and therefore not spending? And anyway, we have all these registered customers. We need to find out how many of these actually do bring bread on the table for these telcos. So that and much more is what we'll be discussing with this executive who I'll be introducing shortly after this bumper. A very good morning. Welcome to the program, Mr. Anwar Soussa.
Good morning, Simon.
Quite an interesting name. You are the executive director at Airtel Uganda.
Correct.
I'm told you're about to change name.
Change name? In terms of?
That particular place has been changing names more times than I've been to church in my life.
That says something. But no, we have absolutely no intention. We're doing very, very well, and we're very happy to be in Uganda. No plans.
Incredible.
Yes.
And here comes the ultimatum from government. You're hit with a 7-day ultimatum to ensure that all your customers, millions of them, I don't know how many you have right now as Airtel.
Roughly 10 million. Roughly.
10 million.
Yeah.
So we're looking at about 10 million. Having them validate their registered SIMs for some of those who have their SIMs registered, and then have those who do not have registered SIMs to register and be apt using the national identification number. How is the exercise going for you?
It's been a relatively painful exercise, if I should say. For the first 2 days, we had problems with our server, so customers were not able to register in the way that we hoped that they could register by *197#, which is the easiest way to register. However, as of Sunday, we fixed the servers, we fixed the issues, and we've been going full on. We've been receiving about 1,000 registrations per minute. We've done about 2 million registrations out of the 10 million customers that we have. I expect we're going to do another.
That is a 20% success.
Sure. I expect we're going to
way below average.
Average for whom or for what?
I mean, if you've done only 20% of an estimated 10 million,
yes,
and you have a matter of hours, not even days, to the end of a deadline, then we have a situation now, don't we?
I expect us to be able to do another, between today and tomorrow, we're going to do another 2 million, so it's going to be 4 million. But don't forget, when there's 10 million subscribers on the network, around 5, 6 of them are the ones who are constantly using it. So it depends on the motivation. Now, obviously, there are issues with the short deadlines. I mean, we have, for example, the people who've gone back up into the country, into their farms to plant. They're not going to be able to register as easily. They're not going to be able to be reachable even by media as easily to entice them to register. So that's going to be an issue.
Why do I disagree with you on that? Let me tell you something,
yes,
Soussa. If there's anything this country loves to do, is get information.
Sure.
Correct or wrong, we are always on our radios and all that. I don't know of any radio station in this country that is not broadcasting about this particular exercise. They must be dead and in their graves, interred never to return, if they have not heard about this exercise. You can go to any nook and corner in this country. Anyone who feigns ignorance about this exercise is a consummate liar, and you better look them in the face and tell them just as much. So let no one lie to you that nobody doesn't know about this re-registration and registration.
Yes.
They may be in far to rich areas, cut away by floods and all sorts of things, but one thing is for sure, they know.
For sure. But as you said, I think that the nature, a part of the nature, our national nature now in Uganda, is that we leave things to the last minute. So a lot of people are saying, yeah, sure, we're aware, but we're going to do it tomorrow, or this evening, late. Something along those lines, which means that they're going to finally do it, and we know that we're going to get more pressure on our systems, but it's something that we fully intend to see through.
Midnight 20th April, bang. You are directed to shut out all customers.
Correct.
Are you going to just bite the bullet and say tough love, but we've got to say bye to you, our dear customers, on the account of a directive from government? How painful will that be for you as a service provider?
That will be extremely painful, but it's going to be done. The government issues a directive, we will comply, and we will shut off customers.
This morning, customers are looking at you and say, look at this guy, who is king to him? Is it the government, or is it we, the customers?
We have a license, and we are beholden to the government. We operate here as an economic player, but we are governed by this country's laws. And if the laws say something, then we're going to comply with these laws. It's not up to us to do as we please within this country. So therefore, the government has issued a directive through the UCC. The government is very united in the fact that they need to make Uganda a safer place, not only for Ugandans, but for everyone within this economy. So we will comply, because we believe in what the government is doing.
Perhaps you as Airtel, who've got presence across the globe, could share with us your experience from Nether. Is what we're doing in Uganda a first? Is it a novel idea, or is this something that happens everywhere in the world? Because many of us ignorantly think we are being boxed up by our own government. We may need to find out from you who play elsewhere whether this happens anyway.
No, I think it happens in most countries. There are some countries in the world that don't require SIM registration, but they're a vast minority. But overall, in Africa especially, it's the vast majority required. In Europe, the vast majority required. It's very difficult to get a SIM card that's unregistered. So we're not doing anything that's novel here in Uganda. The only thing that is a little bit stressful, and I should say very stressful, is the timelines required. However, within a normal timeline and with the normal constraints, this is something that needs to be done.
When you say normal, what is normal?
For us, we see that I think 3 to 6 months would be an adequate amount of time for us to be able to register the 10 million subscribers.
Can I tell you something, Soussa? Even if you give this place 1 year, which is about 12 months,
correct,
you will still have people who will not have registered, and they will still be making loads of noise. So, I don't know, in your own business appreciation of this country, what do you think would be the adequate normal? Or normal means having no rules and regulations to follow.
No.
Somehow,
yes,
we as citizens will comply by the... Have you been to a local Ugandan bank seeking for a personal private loan?
No, I haven't. No.
They will ask you for everything, including your mother's birth certificate.
Okay.
And somehow we provide those.
Yes.
Land titles, you know, you make a photocopy of your marriage band. Come a directive by government, we're making all sorts of noise. But that maybe in one way or another emboldens you as service providers in saying, look, why is this citizenry averse to having their data captured and known by us? Is there something we're hiding? And to bring it to you, have you had cases, and I want you to be very candid with me this morning, do you actually think that the absence of registration also puts you as a business in a precarious situation, meaning you are aiding and abetting crime in the sense of providing a service?
Well, okay, there's two, let's just specify, there's two different elements here. You have the customers that are already in your base, the ones that are now being told to register within a certain amount of time. Those customers are not a big concern to me as an MD, right? The reason being is that we have records for them if required. If any crime, nobody's going to use their SIM cards, their personal SIM cards, the ones they call their mothers on, their children on, you know, their family with, to commit a crime. It's not going to happen.
They're going to buy a new one.
They're going to buy a new one. And for example, I was working in Chad during Boko Haram terrorist attacks. And what they used to do is they used to buy 50 SIM cards, they use it for 2 minutes, they send an SMS, they make a call, and they throw it away. All right. So now the issue is protecting ourselves from new SIM cards, or people who just use SIM cards for a second or two and then throw them away. Those we've done very well, because all the new SIM cards that come on are registered using an ID if they're foreign or a passport. There's no question about that. The rules were a bit laxer.
So I can walk on the streets of Kampala by a back street alley and just give myself a SIM card that you possibly would not be able to trace on the Airtel network?
It would be, no.
To any individual? It
would be extremely difficult for you to do so now. We as Airtel have disconnected about 2.2 million SIM cards that were registered, but we were not quite sure how they were registered. Okay, so anything that looked suspicious to us, we removed. So from my
owners came back blowing hot and cold, and
some owners came back, very few. So we assume that we've cleaned up the backlog of pre-registered SIM cards, the ones that you could find on the streets. Now, going forward, I don't believe you're going to be able to find, but if you find one or two, that misses. You can miss certain things as you clean up. But it's never going to be the way it was 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
Then, of course, there's this directive that no one should be able to, can be able to own over 10 SIM cards on them.
Sure.
So, if I, Simon, who already has 2 registered SIMs from as many service providers, if I gross this to 10, and I then, on my 11th, I show up at an Airtel store, and I, show them my identification and pay the money, the teller will tell me, sorry, you've hit your threshold?
No. No, what's going to happen is, because of the vast amount of traffic that you have now, it's very difficult to do controls, to go back to the system and query the system and come back and say, Simon, you've done your 10 SIM cards, you're not allowed one. However, what we'll do is we're going to run a control in the evening, and we'll come up and you say, you have 11 SIM cards, and we'll just block you. Block the SIM card you registered last. So you're going to have it for a little bit of amount of time, but it's not going to be there for more than a few hours.
So in other words, stoppage can't be at the point of sale, it will be later by automatic system cleansing.
Once the major hurdle gets crossed, which is another week or 10 days, which we hope that most people have subscribed in, we'll be able to query the system, because our system will be able to go back and forth without causing too much traffic. But for now, what we'll do is we'll count the SIM cards, and then we'll start blocking you.
Anwar, I get a sense that this roughshoding that you came in with the ultimatum possibly is also going to sink you as telecom players in amount of money that you didn't expect to spend.
Okay, yes.
I'm sure you are running certain cost overheads that you possibly not estimate.
Sure.
You may wish to paint for us a picture of how much this is on your side, on your books.
I mean, for us, there's 2 sides of this. The first is revenue that you're not earning, because the SIM cards are becoming much more difficult. So even legitimate people who don't have ID cards are not able to buy SIM cards. So that's lost revenue, and that's the revenue you budgeted and you expected to come in. So now your projections are going to be off. The second thing is what you're spending for the actual exercise. Right now, I think for the immediate term, in the next 10 days, we're going to be spending around $2 million just on this registration exercise.
How?
On how? You need to hire additional people. You need to put up tents. You need to offer incentives for people to register SIM cards, because people out there in our stores or with our distributors, they're going to, okay, now I have 10,000 people walking in per day to my store. What's in it for me? I have to hire more people. I have to pay security. I have to photocopy paper. So there's certain incentives that have to be paid to them as well. All in all, that's going to cost you around $2 million in the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
$2 million?
Yes.
As a loss on your side?
That's money that we did not expect to spend.
And of course, you are not here for charity. You're here largely to do business and profitable business.
Of course.
To remit a good bottom line to the group. And how will you accommodate this? Are you going to seek for some subsidies from government? What's the remedy?
We haven't even gotten to that point yet. The reality is, this exercise is very important, and we're not looking at it as a straight loss. It has to happen. This exercise has to happen, and there's going to be certain costs that we're going to incur in doing it happen. The exercise is not free. There's going to be costs associated to it. It's going to take time. Systems have to be upgraded. Programs have to be rewritten. Servers have to be bought. Security has to be put in place. There's a lot of cascading things that need to be done. However, in terms of us making money, what we hope is that once the SIM registration exercise is managed properly, the money is going to return, because people are going to continue using. They're just not going to buy SIM cards and then throw them away, which is what they were doing.
There's a worry that's making the rounds, and that's also one of the reasons that we're coming, one of these litigation cases that has gone to the courts.
Tell me.
that for me to provide my national ID credentials to a guy like you, Airtel, I am losing not just my identity but also my privacy. That you could be able to use the information about me to do all sorts of heinous things that I should worry about. I mean, who knows, you've got all my details, including my fingerprints and perhaps even my iris recognition.
Yes.
And that should not be the case. All you need to know is my name, my place of abode. I change those about 5 times a month.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just about it. Give us the confidence to believe that the information that you are getting as multinational organizations is going to be used against we, Ugandan citizens.
We don't use any information, and that's one of the things that in Uganda particularly people are very concerned with. There's no method that we use. There's no way in which we access your servers and say, you know, Simon who lives at this place, and let's check out on what he's doing, or let's see what his usage is. We don't look at that at all. Those systems for us internally are blocked off. We don't access. However, if
blocked off by who? By yourself?
By yourselves.
So it's about personal restraint. But if push came to shove, you would actually go there.
If push came to shove, we have access to those systems. Okay, but
if I were on a terror list or something like that, you'd say, okay.
You're not. No one is on a terror list. Okay. The government, when requires information, or I should say the police, they have to go get a warrant from the courts to access that information. They're not allowed to access that information unless they have it, and they're very well aware of it. And they play by the rules. We play by the rules. So it's a lot of emphasis is put on data protection. We have no interest, absolutely no interest in finding out what the individuals are doing on the network. We check usage in the sense of how much an individual customer A or customer B or customer C uses, so we can plan our promotions, but we don't know who customer A or customer B or customer C is.
And reward them accordingly.
You reward them, you give them bonuses, you do my Pakalas, this is star 149, whatever it might be. But that's how we plan our marketing. But we don't know who customer A, customer B or customer C is. We don't go to that detail, ever.
A very fine one.
Sure.
Of course, this concerns, and you may need to share with us what happens elsewhere in the world. Look, we've got many other modes of identification. I mean, if a guy has got an Airtel employee's ID, it means that Airtel, for all its follies, certainly will not give an ID, its own ID, to anybody that's not someone that they have a feeling.
Yes.
That if I have got a passport, a national passport, it's a document issued by this government, there is enough data and evidence about me because I fill in letters, including a list of my ancestors from way back when. But if I've got a driving license, which is issued here through a lot of rigorous presentation of identification, all that should be evidence and identification enough to suffice my registration. Then this fascination about national ID, is that the same that applies elsewhere where you've been?
No, I mean, it depends. In certain countries, or most other countries that I've been and I've seen this exercise happen, they will allow a passport or a national ID, okay, because they both have the same strength, I would say. I haven't seen driver's license being used. I definitely have never seen university cards. I've never seen letters from councils. It's typically either a passport or a national ID card that's allowed.
You know, I also want to ask someone from the passport control office just how many passports are out there, because you see everybody's having about their passport and all that. Even those who possibly don't even know how a passport looks like, they claim they have other identification that is akin to a passport. We may need to check this out, but do you think it merits the government to insist that there should be one form of identification, not the other, so that perhaps there's some kind of standardized way of doing that?
I can't speak for the government, and I can't say that, you know, the government should be looking.
You were in a meeting with the government when
correct.
You must have obviously brainstormed about these issues. And so, sorry, I'm just going to put you through the Chatham rules of your engagements in there. You don't have to tell us who said what, but certainly, wasn't the conversation around the mode of identification? Yes,
there was a debate around what's appropriate and what should be used, and the ID is considered the most secure form of identification. Now, I'll tell you something from my personal experience as well, in terms of the 1 year that I'm here in Uganda. The problem really, okay, I'm not going to speak for the passport, but for almost every single other form of identification, there's forgeries. There's lots of forgeries. So we know this on the network. It's very difficult for us to detect a letter, an LLC, a driver's license even. A lot of documents are easy and very available for customers to use, and that's what the government is trying to avoid. They don't want to be in a situation where someone goes ahead for a few hundred or a few thousand shillings, can buy something and then register and then commit something that's very bad and that can cause great damage to this country and to security.
Anwar Soussa, Executive Director, Airtel Uganda. Thanks a lot for taking time off your very busy schedule to be with us to have this conversation.
Sam, it's my
I'm
pleasure.
sure this very short time has been worth your time.
Yes.
I call this program the SMS of TV, and I'm sure you know what SMS is.
I do.
14 characters, and you should say enough information that you would have said in a 4-page letter. So I hope your 10 minutes here have been worth 2 hours of a rally speech.
I would hope so. But thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's been a pleasure. Let's take a short break. When we return, there's more quality programming here on Morning at NTV as Everyday Life takes into another gear to share with you what they have packaged for you on this wonderful Tuesday, Wednesday. I lose track of the days, but I know it's at least April the 19th. Good morning.